break it down. Pivot tables, hallelujah. Bar charts, hallelujah. Goal seek, hallelujah. Cause Excel funk's gonna give it to you. Cause Excel funk's gonna give it to you. Cause Excel funk's gonna give it to you. Just stack the lines and stack the plots. Don't believe me, just watch.
In this video, we will begin our discussion on summarizing data. In other words, we have a data set and we want to be able to describe the data. And so we have what we call descriptive statistics. The first type of descriptive statistics we are going to talk about are measures of center. In other words, what is the middle value or approximate middle value of our data? These are easy to remember because they all start with M. We have mean, median, mode, and mid-range. In addition to learning how to do those 4 calculations in Excel, we're going to talk about how to do some additional calculations that you might find useful. The first one is, how many data points do I have? In other words, what's my total number of observations in my data? Now in this example, I have farms 1 to 32, so I could just put that there's 32 data points. But what if farm 12 was missing? I would erroneously report 32. In addition, you can use the row number in Excel, but notice if you have your data labeled, you'll want to exclude those rows. So I have one data label row, so it'd be 33 minus 1, 32. But sometimes our data is in the middle of the page, like right here. So in addition, the only way to do it would be to count them, 1, 2, 3. But we have a built-in function that makes our life easier. Over here on the right, you're going to see what our built-in function is for your reference. And over here, I'm going to actually use the function to do our calculation. So if we want to know our number of observations, or N, we would type in equals, use the keyword count. We call these built-in functions. So it's going to always be the same formula. Equals tells Excel to do the calculation for you. We're going to put in our keyword, and in this case it's count. Open parentheses, highlight our data, and now you can either just hit enter or you can type close parentheses, enter. Okay, and now it's counted the number of data points I have, which is 32. But again, let's look at our formula. Equals tells it you're going to do the calculation. Count is our keyword. We put open parentheses, and we just used our mouse to highlight our data. But what Excel does is translate that into the data range. So this data range starts with B2, so it started here, and goes to B33, it ended here. And the colon means go to, right? Include everything in between B2 and B33. And this is useful to know because if your formula is wrong or you get something strange, you'll want to check it. So for example, if I'd accidentally stopped highlighting at 32 and got a number of 31 here, I would know to check my formula and say, nope, I should have gone to 33. Okay. All right, so that is in our number of observations, and now we have some other. The first one is the minimum, so it's the key is equals min, open parentheses, highlight your data, close parentheses. Now, you might be like, I would just look through the data set, but you might miss the minimum. You might erroneously think it's this value. Your other option would be to sort your data set from smallest to largest, and that is a viable option. Please keep in mind there's more than one way to calculate these, but I find that using the built-in functions is the easiest way. For maximum, we're going to type in equals max, open parentheses, highlight your data, close parentheses, returns the max. Sum is useful, so we're going to type in equals the sum, and whatever we highlight, it will add it all together. So we're going to take the sum of our data set. Now that might not seem useful to you right now, but I'll show you in a second how that could be useful. All right, now let's look at our measures of center. To find the mean, our keyword is average. We're going to type in equals average, open parentheses, highlight our data, close parentheses. Okay. Now our average or our mean is 0.311. This is the same number you've been calculating if you ever calculated your grade. It summed up all these numbers and divided by the number of observations. What I want to show you over here to the right is we could have calculated it using the sum, right? All the data added up, divided by the number of observations, and we would have gotten the same value. Okay? Again, this is rounded to one less decimal place than this. For our median, our keyword is equals median, open parentheses, highlight our data. Close parentheses or enter. Now the median value is simply the value in the middle if you put your data in order. In other words, if I sort these smallest to largest, the median value is the middle value if I have an odd number of observations. But if I have an even number of observations, I have two middle values that I add together and divide by 2. In this case, median using the function is a lot easier than trying to figure out my two middle values, adding them together, and dividing by 2. All right, so for mode, it is simply the value that occurs most often. So I'm going to type in equals mode is our keyword, open parentheses, highlight our data, close parentheses. But notice that it says NA. That is because in our data set, no value is repeated. So this data set does not have a mode. And that's not why I put use caution. Here you would just say no mode. The reason I said to use caution is because if we do the mode for a data set that actually has one, okay, again, mode is the value that's repeated most often. Notice here that I have a 3 repeated twice and I have a 9 repeated twice. So the correct answer is that the mode would be 3 and 9. But notice what happens if I use the built-in function. Mode of this, it only returns 3. So what happens in Excel is it only returns the first mode that it comes to, okay? So it may give you an incorrect answer. So when using mode, I honestly would say to sort your data and do it by hand to make sure that you actually get the correct mode. All right, our last measure of center is mid-range. Mid-range is not the best measure of center, and that's probably why there is not a built-in function for it in Excel. Our best measure of center is going to be our mean, with one exception. The exception is if we have an extreme value. And I'll give you some examples in class. If we don't have extreme values, all right, like something really, really big or really tiny, then mean is our best measure of center. If we do have extreme values, then median becomes our best measure of center. Okay? All right, but for mid-range, we don't have a built-in function. If I type in equals mid, it tells me something about the middle of a text string. That's not what I want. So we're going to calculate our mid-range by using values that we've already calculated. The mid-range is equal to our max value, so I'm going to type in equals, open parentheses, click on my max, plus my min, so I'm going to put plus and then click on the min and close parentheses. Now, the reason I use parentheses is order of operations. If I don't use the parentheses, it will not know to add those values together before it divides by 2. So the formula is max plus min divided by 2. If I leave out the parentheses, it's going to divide the second number by 2 and then add it to the first number, which will give me something entirely different. Okay? All right, so the formula is max plus min in parentheses divided by 2, and it returns my mid-range value. Again, this is not the best measure of the middle, but it is perhaps the easiest one to calculate. So to give you an idea of what the middle means, I've just repeated the mean here throughout my data set. And what I'm going to do is insert a scatter plot. So I'm going to highlight my data, insert scatter. We did this in a previous. All right, and now I have my scatter plot. And if I want to label my axis, I sure can. But for this explanation, I'm not going to. What you're looking at here are all my data points in blue. And then I've just repeated the mean value here so that you get an idea of what the measure of center is telling you. It's telling you the middle point of my data is right here. In other words, approximately half the values fall below and half the values are above, approximately. All right. So that is our measure of center. I hope this video helps.
Excel funk's gonna give it to you. Excel funk's gonna give it to you.